Welcome to Ignite Interviews. I'm Cyndi Donahue, and I'm extremely excited to be sitting in the Ben Joyce Gallery with artist Ben Joyce. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah.
It
Thanks for coming.
Really amazing to be in here with you. I mean, it's really, I'm kind of geeking out, to be honest with you.
Nice to say that, but thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to share it too. It's good to be based here in Spokane, and anytime that people want to come and visit the gallery, it's my home, and I'm proud to show it off. So thank you for coming.
Yeah. So it's your studio where you work, and it's also a gallery, both.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So everything happens in under one roof now, which is nice. Because you have total control over it, and there's lots of reasons why finding a home in Spokane was so important to us. Is we wanted to be downtown, and we're in the position to look for a building for ourselves. And I say we, my brother and I, Jason. And it was one of those where we could move out to the valley or to Airway Heights, and all great places, but we just wanted to be based in downtown Spokane. And so being able to find this location with the building and the square footage we needed, the timing was perfect. So
yeah. And so how did you originally get here? How did you come to Spokane?
Yeah, so Gonzaga brought me up here. I came up to GU, had a quick stint down in San Diego, and then transferred up to Gonzaga my sophomore year. And mainly the focus was to go study abroad in Florence, Italy. And which, once you can go back and kind of revisit a life and kind of a journey, it's amazing to see, where these steps take you. And, when inspiration hits, all of a sudden it becomes, a whole, focus of a career for, potentially the rest of my life, which is, it's kind of amazing to think about.
And how many members of your family have gone through the Gonzaga program?
Right, yeah. So I'm one of 8 kids, and so all 8 kids, my mom actually was on the program, my dad wasn't, but they met in Florence. And then, and I think the extended family is well into the 30s and 40s. There's a lot of people that have come through. Not all, start to finish through Gonzaga, but transferring for the, for that year.
Yes, I mean your family has deep roots here.
Yeah, exactly, right. Well, and I remember I grew up in a little town in the Mojave Desert, this little town called Acton, California, and I remember coming up to some of my older brother's graduations and walking through or traveling through the downtown thinking, this is such a big city, which is interesting because I worked 45 minutes from Los Angeles, but we just never went into the city. We just stayed in kind of our little desert community. But coming up here, I'm thinking, well, we're in the big city now, and there's just a great feeling. The falls, geography-wise, it's a beautiful place. So.
And lots of inspiration here. And
yeah.
So were you always an artist? Did you know this is what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, for as long as I can remember, honestly. And I've kind of reflected on that at times too, to where there was always just a stronger force driving, because I tried different things along the way, but it always got back to just being creative and, and hands-on creativity. I have some great friends who are graphic designers, and but I needed to be, I needed to feel the paint and the canvas and the wood, and, it's a very textural approach to my work. And, but yeah, I could hold a job for about 6 months, and then it's like, okay, when we were dating, who my wife now would just say I'm a grunt to be around, and it's like, you gotta get back into the studio. And so
creating is where
home, right?
Your happy places.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah.
And so how did topophilia, or the love of place, come about? How did that become kind of your focus?
Yeah, so I transferred up to Gonzaga, and then studied in Florence the next year. And I used to do traditional landscapes, very, it was kind of a variety of styles, but from realism to impressionistic, and just studying art in different forms. And that's what I always used to do, was from, a street perspective. But then while I was there, here I'm sitting in the middle of Florence painting the Duomo and these different perspectives, and I'm looking at, Florence all around me, and it's like I started getting this claustrophobic feeling of these pieces that I would create, and I thought, how can I create a landscape you could travel through and that you can relive all of that experience of one city in one piece. And that was, because Florence, I could never build a house big enough to capture all the moments of experience in that one place. And so so that's Florence, but then you think of Milan and Rome, and it goes on and on and on. I think I traveled to 21 countries when I was there. And so you can imagine all the places that I love. And so, but every time I went to a new place, it was the same observation, whether it was a totally different language, it was this pride of place. And so it was really kind of, the intrigue of being able to capture a landscape, an experience of a landscape in one piece, but then how do you create, a vessel to inject this pride of place into as well, because you can see landscapes, and again, I have great friends that are incredible landscape painters. It's just not what I do. For me, there was a little bit of a disconnect for me as far as the injection of the pride and connection to the place, and
more the emotional connection that someone would look at it and feel.
Exactly, and so what happened was I realized, painted from a bird's eye vantage point, all you need are the recognizable lines. That connects the person to the place, and where the pride comes from is then being able to recreate that experience. And it's an interesting thing. I kind of, a number of times I've explained or described these pieces as almost the front cover of your own novel. This is just the beginning. Once you open that up, then you get to write your own life story, and it's an incredible connection and bond that people have to their place, and we have it long before we realize that we do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, people do. You create your own story within a place, right? So you're basically, like you said, injecting your story into what you visually see.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and that's it. It's amazing for me to create a piece, and then I take a step back and just listen to this individual. I can tell you my connection with Coeur d'Alene or Spokane or all these different places. And then I'll take a step back and you'll tell me a whole different, connection to the same piece that I just went through explaining to you. And that's why I think it's such a unique, the journey that I've put myself on is, okay, how can I create imagery that an individual can connect with that, again, tells their own life story. But then with Topophilia, so in Florence, what happened was, that was the seed of, okay, why aren't these landscapes that I used to paint, that I always loved painting, and I took a lot of pride in, like, I'm gonna make this look exactly like a street visual. All of a sudden, I just felt this, sense of, not accomplishing what I was trying to do, which up to that point, and, throughout every year of school, I was known as the artist in my class, and whether it was cartoons to, like whatever, kind of age or, the path that I was in, drawing always came naturally to me. And so what was interesting in Florence was, I could, even to this day, I could have a great career just painting landscapes. But what was so interesting is, why was all of a sudden there this, intrigue to push that a little bit further, and so I came back. So in Florence, that's where the seed was planted of, okay, there's.
You were inspired to you found your thing, right?
Exactly, right.
Like the way that you wanted to express art.
Right. There's a new calling of creation there. I didn't know what it was or what it looked like at that point, but I knew that there was something else, that there's inspiration, of a beautiful visual to paint but now there's a whole nother element of the connection to place. And so how do you build that emotion into a piece? And so that's where I didn't know what that looked like, but it just started burning in my mind. I mean, I remember, even to this day, it's the same, excitement of how do I keep pushing myself. But I came back, my wife and I got married and we moved back to Spokane, just because I needed to paint and create. And Spokane is an incredible place for a creative mind. And we can get a little bit, I want to try to stay on course with the journey, we came back here and I was literally I was doing construction at that time, and I was even offered a position on the fire department too. And I just knew, okay, if I go down any of these paths, art will always be a hobby to me. And, fortunately, with the support, it's like we just got to keep pushing this. And I was laying in our bed just staring at the ceiling, and it wasn't a square room. There was a hallway coming in and a window seat over here. And so it was this very interesting geometrical shape. And I was just, kind of contemplating again, this, like, how do I, bond these two? And all this, because this was before, I think MapQuest was around. You could look it up on a computer, but there was no smartphone that you could pull any, be anywhere in the world and just a click of the key. But all of a sudden the room, I felt, that it flipped on its, it did a 180. And so I'm looking down, and all of a sudden it looked like I envisioned looking down on a city structure. And so there were these buildings coming down, and what I could see was I could see around the building. And so what dawned on me in that moment is that if I paint from an aerial perspective, then I could paint what the viewer can't see in a landscape. And then what will happen is then they can use those lines to tell their own story from. And so I woke up, that moment, and I went, down to the basement, and I created the first piece of abstract topophilia. And I worked it for 4 years before I even showed anyone. It was just my family, and there's a few pieces in here that are part of that kind of first collection.
But you felt it, like in that moment, you're like, okay, I figured out what I've been
There
doing.
was something there, there was something there, because one of the signatures of my work is that I never fully frame a piece. And so they're all lines. Every one of the pieces that I create in the geographies, the cutouts are based off of actual lines in the area. And the reason why I don't frame it fully is that the composition is continuing beyond the frame, and so the frame can't, get in the way of that. And so, that these are designed, almost think of them as visual puzzle pieces of life that, we can talk about a place we love, but for a lot of people, there's multiple places that you love or connect with. And so that's where, the whole concept of sculpting the lines of the piece is that it allows the viewer to then continue, that it's a reminder that these pieces have to breathe, and it goes beyond what you just see.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so cool to hear you talk about it, because I still remember the first time I saw one of your pieces was in Sandpoint.
Oh,
and so
really?
now
Okay.
looking
Yeah.
back, I recognize that I saw it. So now when I look at your pieces, I remember that moment when I saw the first one in Sandpoint. Because
Yeah.
it's so recognizable.
Thank you, yeah.
And so are there any new places kind of that are inspiring to you that you're kind of working on now?
Yeah, and that's where it's so funny, because it's been, gosh, I don't know, maybe 18 years full time now, and I feel like I'm at the starting gate now, and it's just, I've always envisioned this as a global connection, because what I find fascinating is I have collectors that English isn't their first language. And when, they can speak about the place in a totally different language, you realize that we all have that commonality of connection to place, and no matter where we're at. And so I'm starting off on this journey I'd love to explore that further. It started, I could say, okay, the inspiration came from a foreign land, and now I'm developing it here in Spokane, and which is going to build me the base to be able to go out, and explore this across the globe, because that's what I really want to do is really to start focusing on these different cultures and areas that brings that to light, that, Maya Angelou has that great quote that we're all more alike than we are unalike, and so it's kind of an edited version of it, but it gives you kind of that idea that we are all connected, and so that's the exciting thing, is that journey's already begun. And so I've done a few locations across, the country, and now we'll continue into next month, and depending on the whole COVID situation, if we can get to, start studying abroad or traveling abroad, the opportunities there. So it's pretty exciting.
So it's been, you said 18-year journey, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's been, and now you feel like it's kind of like you're snowballing, right? Like it gets more exciting the faster you go.
Right.
So how long has the gallery and studio been here? I mean, what are some of the hurdles you had to overcome to open the gallery?
I think it's so funny because, I always think, we've been here 2 years. COVID is kind of the gray year of, okay, you add +1 to everything now, and
or 2.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. It's going probably on 3 years, a few of the hurdles that we had to go through was, that I work in multimedia, and so we need rooms that can be dedicated for like a wood shop, for instance, and different areas that we need these specialized rooms to finish out this work. And I didn't realize the complexity of opening a wood shop, and so because our wood shop is super clean, because it's got to be. We can't have any dust in the air. So
because of the paint.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But because of the wood, and that was the wood shop is our most expensive room because it has, I want to say it's a 3-hour fire rated wall or something, and so it's like, all right, but that's it. That was the call it a physical hurdle of finding the space or building out the space. Being able to have a gallery and a studio, and this building is 7,000 square feet, and we use every inch of it. And finding a space of this size in the city is difficult because the downtown isn't a very big area. Once you look at the river and the highway, I mean, you're kind of you can go to the north of the river and things like that, but the downtown core really isn't right. Yeah,
you want to be in the heart of
walking distance from the Davenport, and it's a great location. So fortunately we were able to find it. It used to have just a horrible plywood face to it, and it's a building that everybody comes into this and it's like, we just never knew this existed here because it was just an eyesore, and you drove past it a million times and never saw it, and so the timing of it worked out perfectly.
Well, I love the painting on the outside of the building because I drive this way a lot.
Oh, do you?
So, yeah.
Right.
And so it's for me to see that, because you're not only creating art in your kind of multimedia studio space, but you also literally have art on your building that contributes to our city.
Right, exactly. Well, and that actually is a puzzle too. And so at some point I probably should do a demonstration of it to explain it to people, because it is, to my understanding, it can't be solved. And so that's where that quote that, life, is like a puzzle. You can't, it's actually, remembering exactly what it is, but life is like a puzzle that can't be solved, so make it beautiful, and so I think it's a good, even for myself, when I look at that, it's like, okay, this life isn't perfect, and so why don't you make it beautiful? If somebody could look at that and say, oh, that's a failed puzzle, I think it's a beautiful mural, so there's lots of double meanings to
and
it.
if someone's having a bad day, right, or something's going on in your life and you feel like it's bringing you down, it's just a good reminder. Every time I drive past it, I love staring at it, and I point it out to my daughter. And,
right. Yeah.
And I know that's important to our community. I mean, we're trying to build more outdoor art spaces here. And so why do you think innovation or art is important for the Spokane community?
Yeah, I think and we're seeing it certainly more and more these days, being a creative here in Spokane, my experience with Spokane is I wanted to deliver on the best artwork that I could with my message. And once I refined that message and got it to the point that I presented it to the public, there was a great response to it. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Spokane is when they see the passion and the delivery of something that's top notch, they really support it. And I find it amazing with when you talk about the creative field here in Spokane, you can build a name for yourself here pretty quickly, especially if you're good at what you do. And if you're not that good, you don't last too long. And so, the community really supports that. And, there's so many businesses that are doing incredible. Terrain is an incredible business, especially for the art community. They weren't around, when I started. I wish they were, because they could have taught me a lot, and so the resources, like that for especially the performing arts and the visual arts, it's a big deal to have that support behind the people that are creating it, but then also to show the community that there are organizations that are really dedicating, their focus to building that culture here. And it's amazing. We were talking about earlier, just looking at the restaurant industry, the art industry, everything's, and
sky's the limit.
It's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is that way. And I think that the Spokane community, people here are generous of heart, right? Like they are caring. People here they want to support each other. They want to support the arts. And
right.
And anyone we talk to in this series or through Ignite, it's amazing how that comes up every time. That it's the people are generous with their time, that they're generous with, that they care about each other.
Right.
And
right.
that comes out all the time.
Yeah.
So if somebody was going to try to interact with your gallery or be more involved in the art you're creating, how could they get more involved or come down?
Yeah, the gallery is located 806 West 3rd, right across from Taco Bell and Zips and Les Schwab there. But we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, and then just benjoyceart.com is also a great way to see the work. And yeah.
And hopefully on more people's walls.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to get to be in here with you and talk to you about art. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So thank you.